Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to look at what I was gifted when I bought my house 20 years ago, 19 years ago. This is the area between my house, lot 316, this is lot 317. This picture was taken during a major storm, and this picture was taken before I ever started excavating. Now in the lawsuit, and you'll hear on the phone where the lawyer Trevor Ash told me that when I asked him who's going to pay for your fees, and he gave me a long line of BS about, well, that I'm going to have to pay all the fees. And in his statement, at the end of his statement, he's requested from the court to fine me to the maximum. To the maximum. Now, I did a video a couple days ago about my military experience, how I got drafted, and it's had a lot of hits. A lot of people have viewed it, and it's given me the most favorable responses that I've had since I've been putting on lawsuit videos. But this is another lawsuit video. This is what was gifted to me. This is how I was drafted. All we're going to look at is this picture. You see this out here? That's a for sale sign. This picture was taken right after the 100-year storm. This was taken during monsoon season. This was a typical monsoon storm, and this is what typically happens in a monsoon storm. This is me being drafted by the town of Buckeye, the builder Meritage, Hancock Meritage, and the HOA is in on it. Okay? This is slavery. This is, I was conscripted, drafted 19 years ago with the way they landscaped my lot. This house over here on the right is my house. That house was built 2.5 inches low. The town of Buckeye, against the rules on the front of the grading map, the master grading plans for this community has this finished floor elevation at 2.5 inches higher than what it is. They purposely built this house 2.5 inches low. They drafted me 19 years ago. I was conscripted for the second time in my life. I was drafted 56 years ago in April of 1968. I went into the military May 8th, 1968. If you're following me in the lawsuit, you'll see. But Trevor Ash, in his lawsuit, they want to make sure that for all the letters that have been sent to me by the HOA, and they employed the lawyer, this is what was wrong with the lot to start with. This is what I started with. A landlocked lake. When I've often said this is why I went and got a 35-year experienced surveyor. He came out and he stood right here in the middle of where this lake is, about a month or two after this happened. After this event, this was 2012. This was a storm in 2012, and I hadn't started excavating. I hadn't done any work between these houses. But this is me being drafted 19 years ago, 20 years ago. This was a flim-flam. This was a dirty trick. They made this was an undocumented, undisclosed, illegal retention basin built on my property 19 years ago. I lived with this for 8 or 9. I lived with this from 2004 to 2013 when I started excavating. When I got the letter from Woody Scouting, the first thing I had to do was go out and buy flood insurance from FEMA. It cost me about $400 the first year because I had a letter from Woody Scouting. I had a letter from Woody Scouting saying that Tract A was out of compliance. It had been filled in. And while they filled in Tract A, they made it the most dominant elevation in the corner. 40 feet away, they installed this easement, it's encroachment, it's an encumbrance. I've had this encumbrance on my house I had it on the house from 2004 when I closed the house until about 2013 when I started excavating. But this is what I started with. And Trevor Ash and the HOA board won't recognize this. If I take my building permit and the plans downtown, I take them down because they don't agree. I've been to the downtown to the second floor on Monroe Street where all the engineers, civil engineers for the town of Buckeye are, city of Buckeye, and I can't get anybody to talk to me. Nobody has an answer as to why this house was lowered 2.5 inches out of spec. Now, this house right now is a knock-off house. It has an encumbrance on it. The encumbrance on the house, and the reason I haven't been able to sell the house, this sign right here I put up in 2012. That's been there since 2012. 12 years that sign's been here, but since I know that this house is built lower than it should be, every time I had a chance to sell the house, either to a realtor would come and get involved, or a buyer would come in and want to look at the house. They would get all excited because we're on the lake, we're on the signature hole, and they immediately were interested. And all the realtors wanted the listing. But I worked on airplanes for 30 years, and I will not, in good conscience, ever sell this house to a buyer without disclosing that the sewer pipes and the finished floor elevation were intentionally built out of compliance. Now, I don't know how deep that sewer pipe is in the middle of the street that these sewer pipes run to from the house. All I know is that the house is out of spec. On the front of the grading maps, it says you can't touch the finished floor elevations of any house, and they lowered this one 2.5 inches. They drafted me. Just like in 1968, the small town of crooks, cronies, white supremacists, rednecks, cowboys, whatever you want to call them, when they saw that I wasn't from Buckeye, I wasn't a local, and I didn't knock, and I didn't give a secret handshake, and I didn't give a secret password, okay, that I was a target. I was to be it. And like I said, a surveyor with 35 years stood right here. I called him up and I said, I'm having trouble with my patio, water, landlocked water. I think I have something wrong with my lot. So he says, I'll put my equipment in the car and I'll come out and take a look at it. And he stood right here where this arrow is. And he stood there for about 5 minutes looking at everything. And he turned and looked at me with all the earnest and honesty that a man with 35 years and knowledge, he looked at me and he goes, they made you it. I said, what do you mean? He goes, they made you it. I don't even have to take my equipment out of the car. You see, everything is uphill from here. It's uphill to there, it's uphill to there, it's uphill. They made you it. They're storing water under your house illegally. That's when I started telling people, and that's, he told me, go downtown, they have to give you the grading map plans and the utility plans, Freedom of Information Act. And that's what I did. And when I got those plans and I saw that all three, this house, and the other house on the other side are supposed to be the same elevation, I made water levels. I have water levels. I built them. And I checked the patio elevations. I compared them to each other. This house was 3 inches low. This one is 1.5 inches low. They lowered this one 1.5 inches. They lowered this one 2.5 inches. They did that because they filled up Tract A. Okay? And now I've got a lawyer that wants me to pay all the legal fees for all the letters they've sent me and for all the letters the HOA has sent me. I have made the HOA aware of this landlocked lake, this illegal retention basin on my lot. I've made them aware of it for years. Woody Scouten, the man that wrote the letter decertifying Tract A, I had him out here with Phil Marcotte, another engineer from the second floor, and Edward and Kelly. And we had just had a storm, and there was a ring around the tub right here. So after the after Woody Scouten wrote the letter decertifying Tract A, that's when I brought over the surveyor. And the surveyor said, go get the plans. They have to give them to you. So I did. And it took me about a year or 9 months to finally get my hands on the building permit. But the the stamped signed building permit for this house is out of compliance with the master plan, the master CC&R. Now, I'm going to stop here, but I'm just trying to tell you that I've spent a fortune, thousands of hours, thousands of dollars in heavy equipment, tractors, jackhammers, I spent 8 years out of the last 10 years working in the yard every year because I took pride. I took pride when I found out that they had screwed my house and they had drafted me. I didn't go get a lawsuit. I didn't go to a lawyer. I went and talked to lawyers, and all the lawyers told me, get out of my office. I don't even want to talk to you. Write me a check for $20,000 or get out of my office. I don't even want to go there with you. Okay? This is statute of limitations. You didn't find this out for like 8 years, and you didn't do anything about it. And then when you found out about it, you didn't do anything about it. So statute of limitations says you can't say anything to the HOA. And now I've got a lawyer who has brought a lawsuit against me that he didn't even do the research. Okay? I'm going to stop here, but this is how I was drafted 19 years ago. This was a local draft with the local draft board. The local draft board consisted of the builder, Meritage and Hancock, some crooks down at the city or the town. The fellow that signed the permit, his job was to make sure that everything was code on the permit. And it wasn't. But I'll stop here. And I'm shell-shocked. I'm supposed to be in court next month with a bunch of paperwork. I talked to the lawyer the other day. He called me. I've offered to the lawyer, and I'm going to put it out in this YouTube, and I'm going to send it to the lawyer. Please, bring out. I'm not going to go to court. I'm going to send a letter to the judge that I'm 75 and a half, and I'm not going to be spun around. You're spinning me like a top. I've got a bunch of young lawyers working for a collection agency that have been given the HOA bad advice. I've run for the board twice. I've run for the board twice, and I was very unpopular running for the board. Nobody wanted to hear what I had to say. Tract A, 40 feet away from this puddle, was filled in. I have a letter saying it was filled in. And for a year and a half after that letter was written to the HOA ordering them to fill it in, nothing happened. And I don't have the money. The reason I didn't pursue any of this and I started digging is because Woody Scouten told me I was allowed to do whatever I had to do to get the water off this property. He saw where the ring was. There was a ring around the tub when he was standing here. I asked him, I said, you're in landlocked. And I'm going to give a little advice to anyone who buys a house in a HOA anywhere in Arizona, if it's on a golf, especially on a golf course. If you're fortunate enough to buy the house during a monsoon storm, you will see the drainage signature. We only get to see this signature here about once a year during the monsoons or really strong storms. You don't even know this is here. Now, during the monsoons, it can rain for a week. Can you imagine the amount of water that I stored under my house for about 8-9 years before I started fixing this? All of this right here you're looking at is before I started work. And like I said, I spent thousands of dollars and thousands of hours. And I took pride in my lot. But since this lawsuit and $100 a day fine on me from the HOA, I've given up. I thought I owned these lots, and I took pride of ownership. And I take a lot of pride in finding out what I know. I take a lot of pride that I went to the due diligence, and I take a lot of pride that I have the knowledge to tell a new buyer that you're buying the parking lot lemon. You're buying the knockoff house. I don't care how deep that sewer pipe is. If you come up and give me rationale, if you come up and give me an argument, that sewer pipe is so deep, that 2.5 inches means nothing. You come at me, writing me up all the time on because of petty, what I call petty, chicken shit, Navy chicken shit write-up. This is authority. These are people given authority to write you up. These are people that are given authority not to let you do anything on your yard until you say, may I? I want the court. I'm going to have a judgment against me. There's no way of getting around it. I thought I could defend myself in court. But when they start giving me deadlines, and the judge, even though he knows I'm an amateur, I've never done this before, I don't have a legal team, I don't have legal secretaries or anything like that, the judge made me toe the line and gave me no time to try to defend this. And the simple fact that I have to make all these copies, a statement, make 4 copies of everything. I don't have a legal staff. I'm not a lawyer agency. It's by myself. And I refuse to drive 60 miles to go to court. I've already driven all over. I got a cataract that got diagnosed a couple weeks ago. I just had my annual physical. I have to see a urologist. I have to see a dermatologist for a spot on my face. All right? And I've been paralyzed. Not only for a year and a half have I been dealing with $100 a day fine. $100 a day fine that they started in October with no warning. Let me tell you out there, you people that you think they can't hurt you in an HOA, they can. If I'm going to be called into court by the town of Buckeye, they're supposed to summon me. They're supposed to deliver a summons to bring me into court for a violation, and then they fine me. This lawsuit comes from the county. They can't sue me until they serve me. And I was served by the county, a clerk of the court. That $100 a day fine and all the letters that are in the lawsuit were sent to me on a 52-cent stamp. They won't give me a hearing in front of the board. All this lawsuit with the lawyers and everything else, and they've always pursued the lawsuit. They went into executive session, and they're the only agency. You have a government. I paid dues to the HOA. I've been kicked out for 7 years. In that 7 years, I paid dues. I still have a contract with the HOA. Instead of the HOA talking to me like an adult and discussing what was how I got drafted years ago as a substitute for track day when they filled it in, nobody will talk to me. Nobody downtown will talk to me because they don't have an answer. And the HOA doesn't want to talk to me because they don't have an answer. And all this was done in executive session. I've been living with $100 a day fine, and I've been watching the fine go up every 3 month pay period for the last year and a half. You don't think that's stressful? You don't think that's stressful on somebody that's 70 in their mid-70s? Somebody that's 3 years or 3 weeks older than King Charles? I've been under stress. Every payment I've made, the last 5 payments, I've had to send registered mail return receipt. And they're not crediting me. They have an accounting office, and when I call up Caroline Clinton to help me reconcile the bill for this $100 a day fine, and they're not crediting me, what's she do? She hands it over to the lawyer. If they would have got out and hired a lawyer, a building defects lawyer, or somebody would have talked to me like an adult and allowed me to express a grievance, I was never allowed to. They kicked me out of the HOA because they don't want me to tell anybody about how I got drafted up here. Now I've offered, when Trevor Ash called me up, the lawyer called me up the other day, I offered him, I don't want to fight this. But all he talks about is our fees. We had to write letters to you. We had to, all our fees for writing letters to try to correct this. How about my fee? How about all the thousands of dollars and thousands of hours of time I spent for 8 years trying to fix this lot to make it drain? Woody Scouten gave me a permission that night. He says, you can do whatever you want to get the water off your lot. He said that in front of Edward Kelly. Now, Edward Kelly goes into executive meetings, executive session with the lawyer, a collections lawyer. They don't go in with a building standards lawyer or a building defects lawyer. And I've got a letter where I told the HOA, I've got a problem here with the drainage. And the HOA says, we can't help you with any of the elevations. You're going to have to go to the town and have them give you permission to change elevations. Well, the town did this years ago. They changed all the elevations. This property line just beyond the for sale sign is at least 3 feet higher than what it's supposed to be. 40 feet away from my house, they raised the property line over 3 feet. They lowered my house 2.5 inches, and then where this plant is, that's a berm. This puddle right here is about 2 or 3 inches deep, and it's still got a ways to go. They stored water under my house for 8 or 9 years. And right after this storm, and right after Woody Scouten told me that I could excavate or I could do whatever I want, and right after the surveyor told me, they made you it. Basically, you've been drafted. You've been conscripted. All right? They drafted you. Thank you very much. This is how the town of Buckeye thanked me for my service. All right? I was from out of town. I wasn't a local person. I would suggest if you go buy a house in Arizona, make sure you go looking for the house on a rainy day during the monsoons. If I would have seen this before buying the house or been educated to it or been read all the documents, the first thing I did, because I'm an aircraft mechanic, is I started reading manuals. I got all the manuals from Buckeye and Maricopa County. And I went downtown and got the utility and grading maps. They mutilated this yard. They made this an illegal retention basin. And I'm not going to get credit for any of the money I spent. The lawyer wants to, if I want to settle this with the lawyer, I have to pay all his legal fees. for all the letters that they sent to me for 52 cents. They haven't got one letter. That getting back to, you've got a government, an HOA, that works like no other government. Your town government, before they can fine you or put you in jail or discipline you, they have to serve you. The county's the same way. There's a lawsuit against me and I got served by the county. But you don't have to get served. What I'm trying to get across to you, you've got a government that you pay dues to, and when they go into executive session, they don't have to tell anybody what they said about you or what they did. And they start a $100 a day fine against you and you never get a notice. They send you letters for 52 cents. The lawyer sends you letters for 52 cents. All right? And they put a judgment against you. That $100 a day fine was a judgment that was put against me by the lawyers, by the HOA in executive session, and I never saw it coming. They don't have one return receipt where they served me and said, we are going to discipline you with a $100 a day fine. They never did that. I never got a letter. I never had a postman come up with a return receipt letter from the HOA saying that we are going to start charging you $100 a day. I was completely sucker punched. And this has been going on for a year and a half. And because I'm sending in my dues payments and I'm not missing them and I'm very anal about it, obsessive compulsive about sending in the, I've spent about, over $100, about $100 in the last year and a half, sending in my dues payments, return receipt, registered mail. I do that when I send them letters, return receipt, registered mail. They put a fine on me of $100 in executive session and never told me. I never got a registered mail, return receipt letter from the HOA inviting me in for a hearing. I never had a hearing. The reason they won't give me a hearing, and I'm going to put it up here on another video, is because I've run for the board twice. And when that letter of decertification came in on track day in 2012, written by Woody Scouten, the head engineer in town, he ordered. This was an order against the HOA. And we have 3 governments out here. This is another thing. He kicked the can down the road. You got the HOA, the golf course, and the town of Buckeye. And they're all kicking the can down the road between them. This was a town of Buckeye. Track day was a town of Buckeye deal. And a golf course deal. The builder filled it in. And then the builder turned everything over to the HOA. And Woody Scouten wrote the letter to the HOA. But the HOA isn't going to do anything. They're telling me you got to go to the town to fix this to find out what the elevation should be on your lot. Now, the other day I invited Trevor Ash, his whole legal team, come out. Look at what I'm dealing with, what I had to do. I spent thousands, replacing irrigation, drainage pipe, gutters. I put solar on the house. And I got sucker punched at Christmas 2 years ago. When I got that bill that was a straight dues payment, I thought I was done with the HOA and fines. So before Christmas, I went out and paid about $2,000 for a brand new air conditioning mini split, and I put it in. That was another $2,000 or $3,000 of my labor. So I had about $6,000 invested in a brand new air conditioning system in my house because I thought I was free and clear. I got a straight bill in September of 2022 for $285. No fines, no liens, anything against it. Nothing that would indicate that. And they knew when I got that bill that they had started a fine. There was nothing on the bill that would tell me that on October 1st, we're going to start fining you $100 a day. And the thing of it is, HOAs are getting away with murder in the state. They're another government that can penalize you. That $100 a day was a penalty. It was an encumbrance. My lot, this house, has had an encumbrance on it since the day they laid the pad. And when Creative Environments, the goons that did the landscaping in the backyard, and they were working hand in hand with Hancock and Meritage, they put all kinds of dirt between me and the property line. But I've been trying to sell my house for 12 years. That sign is 12 years old right there. Over 12 years, I've been trying to sell the house because of this. I turned the other cheek. I've had no engineering help. The only engineering help I've had is Woody Scouten giving me permission in front of Edward Kelly that I can do anything I want to get the water off my property. And I'm sick and tired of being spun around by a bunch of jokers in the HOA. They go into executive session with a young collections lawyer and they let him dictate to them what their duties are. Their duty to me is to serve me with a letter so that they have a receipt that I got the letter. I never got a letter about a $100 a day fine. And now I'm being sued. And every letter that has been sent to me by the HOA was a 52-cent stamp. Try to get this through your head, anybody out there in YouTube land, about HOAs. First of all, if you're going to buy a house in Arizona, try to do it when it's raining, because you'll never see this when it's dry. These are masters of illusion. Masters of illusion. But there it is. I'm being sued for trying to fix this. And I give up. Ever since that $100 a day fine came at Christmas in 22, Christmas is 22, I don't have any more pride. And I realize that I don't own my lot anymore. This lot that I took so much pride in to make it drain, and I put thousands of dollars and thousands of hours of labor in it to make it drain correctly, it's all for naught. I haven't put a dime in investment in this house since Christmas of 22. Everything stopped. I was well on my way to finishing this lot, but when I saw the $100 a day, and the reason for the $100 a day fine is election interference. The year before, I was on the ballot for the board of directors. I was kicked out of the HOA at the time. When I went for the meet and greet night, I couldn't even get into the facility. I had to wait for this lady to let me in. And I only lasted about 10 minutes in that meet and greet because the master of ceremonies would not let me talk. They put a policeman in the room just for me. Just for me. They had a policeman at the meeting because they knew he's going to come in here and he's going to want to talk. And he's going to want to talk about track day, and he's going to want to talk about his arrest, and he's going to want to talk about the illegal dumping on his lot. He wants to talk about his house being built out of compliance. I lasted about 10 minutes. When the master of ceremonies passed me up, I left. And the cop met me at the door. The cop met me at the door to help make sure I got out of there. Please don't ever buy in an HOA. This is at the end of the day. I'm trying to make this video. I'm struggling. I haven't been myself for over 2 months. Ever since I got served on the lawsuit, on top of $100 a day fine for the last year and a half. I thought I was going to fight this. I thought I could do it on my own. First of all, I invested about $600 in 2 lawyers. What a waste of time that was. Both lawyers, when they find out that I'm taking on the town of Buckeye, the golf course, and the HOA, and it's about something that's 19 years old, that they did 19 years ago, the lawyer more or less tells me, you're an idiot. I don't even want to go into court with you. I don't want to go into court with you. You think you're gonna dig all this stuff up? They're not gonna hear this. All they care about is what's in the lawsuit. They don't want to go back in time. Like I said, 12 years ago when I found all this out and the surveyor told me and the Woody Scouting told me you're free to do whatever you want, I turned the other cheek. And like I said, I had no engineering help. When I go downtown to the 2nd floor and I give them my name, nobody will come out and talk to me. They don't have an answer for me. This was a flim-flam. This was illegal, what they did. They took advantage of a person from out of town, somebody that wasn't local. Thank you for listening. I'm not real proud of this presentation. It's all chopped up. But you see what I was dealing with. I dealt with this every time it rained from 2004 until about 2013 or 14. And like I said, I've been trying to sell the house for 12 years. But I'm not going to sell the house to somebody who is going to come in here and think that the house was built correctly. And I'm not going to sell the house to somebody that thinks that parcel 12 easement tract A is legal. I think it's totally illegal. It's totally illegal. It doesn't drain. It's a catch basin. It has a trip fall hazard at the end of it. I've invited the lawyer out. I conceded to him the other day. I said, look, bring your team out here. Tell me how you want this fixed. I've had to do this without engineering help. And I know this property line just beyond the sign is over 3 feet high from spec. The engineer spec'd it out as 3 feet lower than what it is. And right here, this is all uphill. This little bush right here probably sits 6 inches above the patio. This is landlocked. The cement in my pad under my house is rotted. Rotted. Because no matter how many days it rains for how long, the water is trapped. It can't get out. It has to be absorbed. It'll take about a day for this to disappear. The next day we get a couple inches of rain again, we're going to have another one, landlocked. This is civil engineering flim-flam, what we call reverse engineering. This lot, they engineered that property line to be 3 inches lower. They engineered this house to be 3 inches higher. They destroyed the drainage geometry. And I can't get anybody at the HOA to give me an interview, a hearing, give me any of their time because they don't want to hear it. We stole it fair and square 19 years ago. We have social engineering. We took track day and we redlined it. We segregated it. We took it out of service. We handed it over to some rednecks from Nebraska and Colorado that thought that they could bring their bucolic lifestyle here. In the lawsuit, it mentions, Trevor Ash mentions in the lawsuit how the responsibility of the HOA, and that's why they're finding me, because they're responsible for all the lots and all the theme. Well, they're not fixing track day. There's a video out there I made a couple weeks ago where it shows that big drop off, that hole at the end of track day. I made another video where it shows track day is a lake during the storm. And we don't have golf cart access. And we don't have emergency vehicle access over track day. This is what I was drafted. I'm making this as draft because everybody that saw my draft video yesterday, it kind of went viral. It's got over 300 hits and a whole bunch of favorable comments. But this is Buckeye. I'm 75 years old. And this judge, who I figure he's Arizona law, just like the lawyers, Arizona law, they don't have a clue. But this was what I was burdened with. It's an encumbrance. It's an encumbrance that's been on my house since I bought it. I didn't know about it. Can you imagine the sick feeling in my stomach when I finally got the permit and the building plans, and the surveyor told me that they're using you after buying 3 houses up here and paying dues for about 8 or 9 years, paying dues for 8 or 9 years on 3 houses, only to find out that they put something illegal on my land without telling me. Thank you for your service. That's the way to town of Buckeye. And the thing of it is, they all know about it. That's why nobody in downtown will talk to me. Nobody in City Hall will talk to me. They don't have an answer. If I lay down the permit next to the building plans and I go, how come they're different? They don't have an answer. Except that you were from out of town. We were ordered by Hancock to make your lot a retention basin. You had to be the substitute for track day that was filled in and given to a bunch of rednecks from bucolic USA that thought they could get away with bringing their farm with them. Please don't ever, ever get involved with an HOA. And especially if you're single. Especially if you're single. You don't have a clue. And I'm going to show you, see if I can get rid of this picture. All right, here we go. We'll take you right back. Oh, In case anybody doesn't believe I was in the Marines, there I am, my father and I. That was probably about 1969, 1970. One of the leaves I had were on the way to the airport. Thank you very much. Okay, now let's go through these pictures so that you can see. You see right here, that was the cart path that came from the tee box when I bought the lot. This was the cart path coming from the tee box that told everybody that was buying a lot here, this is how you're going to get in and out of the parcel. It now has a tree planted. It took them about 2 or 3 years, but they planted a tree there. Let's go on. Here it is. There it is. You see that rise? You see that berm right there? That plant, this is what happened every time it rained for 8 or 9 years until I started excavating. And another thing I want you to look at, this tree right here, it isn't here anymore. I paid $3,000 to have this backyard landscaped. I paid Creative Environments $3,000 to landscape my yard, and what they do, they brought in all kinds of dirt to put a berm between me and the property line. And this property line of rocks right here is over 3 feet high from what is specced out. This patio right here used to go underwater. Now I have a drain here. I have 3 pipes now going to the property line. I have the main drain pipe. It's a 4-inch pipe. I have the gutters. The gutters weren't put on yet. I have a gutter pipe that's 3 inches. And I got permission from the people who are living there to put another pipe. So there's 3 pipes that are taking water away from here. But this is retention. It's illegal to put retention on a residential lot. There it is right there. And I want to show you. Everybody talks about restoring the lot, restoring the lot. That's part of the lawsuit. Everything in the lawsuit is we want you to restore the lot to what it was. The lot was a retention basin. Now, if you can see this eave right here, that's a 75-foot eave. I've since put gutters and 3 pipes. This is the wet spot. This is before Creative Environments started. This house is 2.5 inches out of spec below the finished floor elevation. This house is 1.5 inches. And here's the filled in tract A. They filled it in. Here we go. This is what I lived with day in, day out, every time it rained for about 8 years until I did the due diligence. If I hadn't have been an airplane mechanic and sold real estate, I wouldn't have known where to start. But I went and got the plat maps for the community, and I brought out a surveyor. The surveyor told me they made you it. I can see it. Everything is uphill right here. Now this is a few years later, and see how this berm, Creative Environments, the berm they created? And here's where the puddle starts and ends. And they brought in even more dirt. They brought in even more dirt and put more dirt between me and the property line after they did this. Okay? This is what my property was encumbered by, burdened by, encroached upon. Okay? See that eave? That eave is 75 feet long without a gutter. And it dumps water between these houses. That's why that lake was so big. Landlocked lake. And here's tract A all filled in. More dominant in elevation than here. This was a flim-flam. And like I said, everybody talks about restore your lot, restore your lot, restore your lot. How about restoring my view? How about getting rid of that tree you planted down there on the cart path to ruin my view? This is what I paid for 19 years ago. It went away. You planted one of the hardest trees to trim, a thorny Palo Verde. There it is. That was the encumbrance that was put on my lot that I've dealt with for the last 19 years. And like I said, when I got that but I'm going to end now. I really am not satisfied with this video, but you might get something out of it. But I was drafted twice. 1968 by my hometown. They sold me down the river. So we don't want his DNA mixing with ours up here. Get rid of him. And then, same thing. I come to small town America, Buckeye. Same demographic as my town that had me drafted 56 years ago, and I get drafted by them. You're from out of town. We don't know you. We don't like outsiders coming in and out, but outbidding locals. I guarantee you, I would almost guarantee you that Meritage had a number of bids on this lot that I paid full price for. I guarantee you Meritage had a number of bids from locals that were here at the time that offered less than what I paid for the lot. This lot was 5,600 square feet and I paid $25,000 for it 19 years ago when nothing was here. Nothing was here. And they took that urban plan that came out of Phoenix, this urban plan with all the access easements for the walking trails. And they butchered it. The rednecks out here said, we're going to take all the big lots that sit next to the access easements and we're going to sell them first. These buyers came in from the Midwest and said, if you get rid of that access easement, you just sold that lot. And the biggest lots in the parcels are the lots that are on each side of the access easements like Tract A. Lot 318 is one of the biggest lots. And the reason it's the biggest lot, it was supposed to be encumbered by an access easement. 317 next to me is one of the biggest lots. Why? Because it was encumbered by an access easement. But these redneck cowboys, bucolic cronies out here, old boys club, whatever you want to call them, when that plan got out here 19 years ago, they took many common areas out of service. They either blocked them off with mailboxes or they filled them with rock. They took them to where nobody could use them. And the people that lived on each side of the track had a forever entitlement. We trimmed their plants. We watered their plants. That extra 2,800 feet Tract A was added to both of their lots as a scenic easement. It didn't drain. They made me the drain. Thank you for listening.